Welcome to another Gamma Partner Artist Spotlight. Today we speak with Cover. Cover was selected to be displayed and curated at Ordinals Alley, the first IRL Ordinals physical gallery at Bitcoin Miami. Cover has also sold out her Genesis print and collaborated with Teflon Musk on her second one. So we dive into collaboration, the experience of the Ordinals journey, how IRL experiences and emotions impact her as a person and as a creator, and how her journey started way back in grade 5 when she was trying to design the next famous Disney comic. Welcome, Cover. Such a pleasure to have you here. You know, you've gone right back to when we essentially started as an Ordinals marketplace to now dropping lots of different types of work. Now you're a Gamma Partner artist. You've worked with Counterfeit Cult, working with one of our devs to do some cool stuff using recursion, so much different art, exploring glitch art and different styles. You've had an incredible journey in what's only been 9 months. But let's go back and you can introduce yourself. You know, go back to like when you were just a little Cover, when you were a little girl, you know, picking up pencils and pens and exploring art. But how did you get to this point? We'd love the whole story.
Oh my gosh. From like literally as a kid or the last 9 months?
Yeah, like as far back as you'd like to go, but there's always a story behind the artist.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I mean, I have a tendency to be long-winded, so I'll try to be neatly compressed as possible in true ordinal fashion. I would use the word compressed. Yeah, I mean, growing up, I always, really leaned into just the artistic side. My stepdad growing up was incredibly artistic, and I think it was like by the time I was like 6 or 7, I was like, I'm going to be an animator at Disney. Like that was like what I'm gonna do. And I would just, even in all my classes, I was like in the back with the boys, like creating this comic book. It was so funny. Like this is like the comic book we're gonna make and sell, and we're gonna be hit it huge. And I think that was even like in 5th grade. So it's just so funny to still kind of even like reminisce on that. But my biological father was like an engineer, and he's like, no, like art is not the thing. You're not going to make any money in it. You're not going to make a living in it. And so he just always was like, that's a cute hobby, not what you're going to do. So I was like, okay, but nonetheless, it's just like always what I would do. And, I really loved art classes, like growing up. I always like really connected in that, had incredible teachers, like incredibly thankful for the arts. And those like who facilitated it and just really let me express that side of myself. I struggle actually really intensely with imagination, and anything realistic was like what I wanted to do. So it was like I was drawing portraits, I was sketching all the time. It would be like old poster. I don't know if you're like, I feel like we're probably about the same age. We're both in our mid-30s, right?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, somewhere. I'm like cruising on late 30s. So,
I'm getting that.
But yeah, there's just like those old posters back in the day, and I would be like sketching, like just pencil sketching, like what I would see on like the posters. And I loved it. Like I had this old The Doors. I don't know if you remember like Jim Morrison or anything like that. Yeah. So it was like, okay, I'm gonna draw Jim Morrison. And I freaking would just like just go to town on that stuff. Loved it. So anyways, I had, once again, my senior year, I was like, I think I'm gonna actually try to like apply for the Art Institute of Cincinnati. There's art institutes all over, but this was, in Ohio. I was like, this is what I'm gonna do. And I had my senior art teacher, she was like, yeah, like, let's do this. I'll write a letter on your behalf, like try to get you any kind of scholarship that you can. And then, dad came in once again. So it was like, dad's like, well, if you want, any kind of help with school, this is not the direction I'm going to help you with. So I was like, well, shit. So it's just always just been a hobby, really. And with that being said, like, it's always been me doodling, it's always been kind of just this like thing in my journal. Yeah. So like when I met you back in the Stacks days, So long story short, or kind of segueing, I guess I'm making a long story.
No, it's great.
There just was, times were tough with COVID, right? And I lost my job, had some friends who were super into crypto and NFTs, really into stacks, and they were like, "Hey, come on, can you edit our podcast for us as a part-time job?" And I was like, "Hell yeah." So get in the stacks ecosystem, meet the whole basically what's now the Gamma team and meet all of you guys. And it just was like this fun thing of like, okay, we're creating every day, like having fun, just doodling. And then it was like, oh, what if we actually like mint stuff? Like, what if we actually like put this on a chain somewhere? And it was like
Mm.
just this fun, stupid little stuff that we were doing. And just that exploration process of it. And it's definitely very different than pen and paper or pencil and paper, which I'm used to. And that's what I feel more comfortable and natural with. Um, but nonetheless started minting with stacks on the L2 and really enjoyed it. And yeah, I have so many silly little things that I minted back then when I like reflect on it under a different name. And so it was like around that time then where I was like, maybe I should take this like a little bit more seriously and like actually get an iPad. Like I had this little, what is it, like the Wacom, WACOM. Like I have the
Mhm.
old like little pad just above my head here, but just this trashy little Wacom. And I had like the Adobe Illustrator for a second, and I was like hard up into doing vector stuff. And but it was like fun, but it just was not landing. Like I could not, that's just not my sweet spot. So, anyways, just about like anybody else, got the iPad, got Procreate, and really just went to town with stuff. And honestly, right around that time was, when freaking Ordinals came around, and it's just been a crazy time since then. So that's kind of like, a little bit of the story from back then to now. I've always had some kind of artistic creative bent in nature to myself. I think everybody does, but I think just really trying to tap into that and taking it a little bit more seriously, but also still enjoying it and just having fun, like not getting caught up in the seriousness of it too much. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really eloquently put, and it's so interesting to think that, like you said, you're in grade 5, sketching out the next famous Disney comic, to then, fast forward, you had different experiences. You weren't sort of encouraged to go into the arts, but it was clearly always there for you. And then
Hmm.
doodling and working with the airdrop guys, and then ordinals coming around, and it's sort of like, it sounds like your process has evolved. And I mentioned at the start that you have dived, I'm not sure what the correct word is, ever dived or dove, I think it's dived straight, head on into sort of like really unique glitch art. The first thing that put cover on the map was,
Yeah.
you'd started working with Counterfeit Cult, and you had put out a collection called Understanding, and one of the pieces
Hmm.
was selected to be featured at Ordinals Alley, which was back in Bitcoin Miami,
Hmm.
essentially the first ever Ordinals, IRL gallery. So tell us about that. And whilst you're doing that, I'll be pulling that piece up.
That was so crazy. I mean, obviously you look at the pieces. I was and still am, but I think my art is kind of taking a different direction at the current moment, but of like very inspired by X Copy. I mean, his stuff is incredible, and so you can obviously see their inspiration there in those pieces. And this was the first piece. So this was crazy. I was just like, okay, Ordinals had just started. I think this is like around, the only reason why I remember this is because I actually got snowed in and I was like, okay, what am I gonna do? I have nothing, I can do nothing but
Mm.
like drink a bunch of blue moons and play on my iPad. Like that was just like all I did. So I got snowed in, and then I was like talking to Counterfeit Culture about all this stuff, about them, possibly making this project. And I was like, yeah, I think it would be sweet to like kind of start over, almost like rebrand myself, do things on Ordinals. And so I just at that time was also going through a lot of stuff personally. My My stepmom, who has like raised me since I was like 2 years old, had passed away very quickly due to cancer. I think it was like 6 months. So it just was like, honestly, this all kind of just happened at like such a like unique stage in my life where this also was like, oh, this is like a fun hobby thing that I've always done as processing, even in my journals, throughout the years, for 30 years now. And it's like something very sacred to me. And then it's like, oh, it's happening like almost publicly while I'm processing, the death of someone very close to me.
Mm.
And like, I think in the past I had always like I said in the beginning, like I struggled with like inspiration, or I struggled with like the creativity aspect of things. And so this was like really me trying to like tap into like, okay, screw trying to overthink it. Like, how can I just process what I'm going through for the sake of processing, not thinking about the end game or the end goal of like what would happen to these pieces. And so, my stuff is very influenced also by scripture. It's something that I've talked about and, in spaces, and it's also even on some of the descriptions of the pieces on the websites and whatnot. And I would just was reading in scripture during that time, and I was like, this is where I personally am at and what I need to find faith in and grounding in during this time as I'm like processing death,
Mm.
and because I mean, I don't know who does well with death, but I am like do really badly. Um, so yeah, I like made those pieces. I knew that it was going to be six because it's based off of the book of Daniel, and in that book specifically, he talks about six visions. So I actually just finished the six piece with like I don't even know, probably 3 weeks ago, and it's it's October, and I started this in like January, February. So it's kind of funny, but it's like funny and a little embarrassing. But so I knew it was gonna be like six pieces, but I made the first three like by February, I think it was, or no, they had certainly been made by like April at that time,
Mhm.
because then it was in May when the submission stuff came up for Ordinal Alley. And at this point, I'm like, okay, I've been working with counterfeit culture now and this stuff. I'm like making these pieces really just for myself. I'm like, hell, I don't even know what's going on with the market in Bitcoin or ordinals. So I'm like, counterfeit culture is doing an incredible job of like helping me out with inscribing and running nodes and all that stuff, because that's 100% a weakness of mine. And so I think it was like, a good friend of mine, Boozy, I've known him for a couple of years now. He was like, "Hey, are you gonna submit your stuff to Ordinal Alley?" And I was like, "Dude, no. Like, my stuff just is like meh. Like, I know that we're our own worst critics, and but I just was like, it's fine, but I don't think that I'll get chosen. Certainly, like, and so many people are gonna apply for this. Like, there's just literally no way." And he was like, "Just try. I mean, like, what's there to lose?" And I was like, "Okay, fine." So it was like, I think it was like 11 p.m. at this point, and I think it was like submissions were closing at midnight or something like that. So I knew that I needed to get it done by midnight, and I was like, "Freaking crap!" Like, I haven't thought about how to describe, like, what would be my description of the collection. I was like, I don't even have a clue. Like, how? And it asked questions of like, what do you hope the person who views this collection like experiences when they look at it? And I was like, what deep questions I had like just not thought of. And I was like, oh my god. So I'm like, okay, here we go. And I'm just like cranking out these answers, and I'm like, okay, this feels good. I did not use Chat GPT, I just want to say. And I just was like, this feels good. We'll just shoot the shot, see what happens. At least I said that I did it. And then it's like, I don't even know. I think it was like May, beginning of May at this point, where they announced the winners, and I was out playing pickleball, like just minding my own little business in town. And I was like, I'm never gonna hear anything back from this. Get in my car, and I get these messages, and it's from Boozy, and he was
Mm.
like, "You were chosen." I like get on Twitter, and it's just like blown up, like truly blown up. My Discord's blown up. And I think I screamed like the whole way home. It just was like such a cool, surreal feeling of like, this is this is crazy. This is just crazy that it's gonna be in an in real life gallery, that people are gonna see this, like people are gonna like walk in and see this thing. It just was like, I don't even know. It just was like incredibly, I mean, I just felt like so honored to even just be considered, let alone chosen. And so yeah, spoke with the curator. Hugo was in charge of it overall, and he was like, "Yeah, AC, the collector, is the one who really connected with your piece." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, like I respect the crap out of that guy, like
Mm.
so much." So I was like, "That's crazy to know that it hit home with him, like someone who's very high up in the space." Um, that I connected with him in such a way where he felt like, yeah, I connect to this collection and I would want to see it. And, but like, I'm not saying like I would, like, he would want to own it, but just that kind of thought, I was just like, wow, that's just really incredible. So he really encouraged me to like lean in. I think something that I always kind of strayed away from was, getting in my own head about articulating my faith journey in Web3, because it's kind of, it's a sensitive topic, right? And it's like, you don't
Mhm.
want to like cause division, or like, I don't want to say burn bridges, but it's like you don't want to like cause division, just like people to assume that I'm maybe one way because I'm a Christian, and that they can't talk or do or show whatever their art is because of whatever my faith is, right? So I was always like really hesitant about just communicating that. And so I think really hearing like his encouragement of just like leaning into that really gave me a lot of confidence to be able to do it in a way that's like, this is just me and my art and what inspires me. This isn't like some pressure thing that I'm like trying to put on anyone. Now, if you could like connect with it even in a way that's like not based on faith, and that's all, like you can still connect with it. Like art is subjective, right? So that was always just like, that was just a really cool moment to have with him about that, and something that I really, ran with and tried to lean into. So yeah, it's been crazy. I mean, it's just been a crazy ride ever since. It's like it brought a lot of attention that I'm incredibly thankful for.
Yeah, it's incredible. And it sounds like you've had quite a tough year. So thanks for being brave and talking about it. But then at the same time, all of these amazing and quite powerful experiences too. And, I think that it's great that you're leaning into it and using art as a way to deal with things, and using, religion as a way to
Mm,
deal with things. And yeah, thanks for being so raw and so honest there. So
mm.
tell us, how did those early experiences kind of shape you and kind of push the direction that you have gone with your art? Because you're a Gamma partner artist, which is terrific. I'll pull up a couple of those pieces that you've created too. Um, and one of them is a collab, so you can talk about what that process was like
Mhm.
as well. But yeah, like you're really creating these beautiful artworks, but using this glitch style, and it's I suppose artists can create what they like to create, but when I see them, it almost now becomes iconically cover. You can tell that they're done by you, which I think is,
Mm.
a tip of the hat.
Yeah, that's Twix said that the other day about some stuff. Like he was like, "Oh yeah, I know that that's covers glitch," and I was like, "That is crazy to me." Because to me, I'm just like, I could probably do it better or more. I could just do it differently or more. And he was like, "No, that's exactly," because Twick and I are also working on a collab, and he was like, "No, that's what I want."
Oh, that is alpha. So we have collision of security up. So I'll just scroll down so we can see it. There we go.
Hmm. Yep. Collision of Security, I love. This one was like so fun. I didn't have any intention to do anything with it. Honestly, I think I posted it like a month before even Gamma Partner and Prince was like offered to me, or pitched to me, and I was like,
Mm.
"Oh shoot, like I have this thing that I would like, this work in progress I would love to use." Um yeah, Collision of Security. I This piece is like really awesome too. So this is like, once again, I was going through some heavy stuff. I I don't mean to laugh. It just kind of sounds crazy when I talk
Mm.
about it in 18 minutes now at this point. But my sister passed away,
Really
you know,
sorry to
just
hear that.
about a month and a half, gosh, a month and a half ago now, 2 months ago. And with collision of security, it was just like, man, it to me, it just is like, okay, like what is it to pray about that? What is it to have faith to like feel like you have it's just a collision of security. Like it just feels pretty self-explanatory. Um, and it was like the hands praying, for example, was just like, okay, you think you can have such security in your faith, but it's like the glitch kind of playing into it where it's like, oh, it's like feels unstable. And I think that's just like a perfect description of, you know, faith in general for probably any type of faith, right? Where you're just like, it can feel stable one moment and unstable the next, or, you know, whatever you have hope or just like thoughts or conscious beliefs about. And so yeah, that was like that once again. And like I made that no intentions of like this is gonna be much of anything. And I think I say this again because I'm like, these are my most like successful pieces successful pieces are the ones that I thought no, like I wasn't even gonna share or like no one would probably care about. The ones that mean the most to me have been the most successful, ironically. So I know somebody even posted something about that the other day of just like make art for the sake of like making art to express yourself, not for the end game. Um, but yeah, so the collision of security, it sold out. I mean, it just sold out recently, but I think it like shot up to it's been on the most popular like top three since Game of Prince started, which represent for the women. I just am like, I also, this is like such a segue, but I'm like, we need to get more women artists up on the top there. I was like looking at it and I'm like, dang, it's just like me and a bunch of dudes right now. It was like the tweet that I posted today. I was like, man, I'm just tagging a bunch of guys right now. We need to have some more ladies.
And
Um,
there, yeah,
but
and
yeah,
there is good representation, but yeah, we need more prints
mhm,
sold by them. But no, on that note,
yeah,
and you're right, but on that note, congratulations on the successes of that. And it's interesting
mm,
how you commented that you were never maybe even going to put them out, and they ended up being your most successful ones. So they clearly speak to
mhm,
people the most. There's almost something in that.
mhm, yeah, yeah. It's really cool, and I mean, it's like I think that, you know, there's always been this conversation of like, and I definitely am not saying I'm a fine artist. I don't even want to get in that topic, but like fine art and commercial art, it just like, let's just break it down to those two types of things. And I think it's like when you start to get into like, right, by definition, fine art is like something that it's like a handful of things, but and also causes conversation, right?
Mm.
And I think that's like, okay, at the core, all of these things that we've talked about are like deep conversational pieces for myself and for even others of what it brings up in them. And then if you have like more commercial style where it's like it's serving its purpose for sure, and also can be like released in a specific or unique kind of way, you're probably not going to like release commercial art this way, right? And so I think that's just been like such a reminder. Like you can really truly see it when you like even just go on Twitter and you're looking at like artists that you admire or whatever. It's like I would say 90% of those things, you know, mean something deeply emotional to most of those people, you know?
Yeah, and it's so interesting how our experience and emotions play into that. And I'm curious. So you can see your second print there, which was your
Mhm.
collaboration with Teflon Musk, who's also
Yeah.
a partner artist called Desert
Mhm.
Embrace. I'll get into it. Tell me about the process. I like this. We'll read the Desert Embrace, where silence meets Twilight's grace. A collab with
That's all
Cover and Teflon.
Teflon. He's the wordsmith.
Oh, it doesn't fit in my screen, but we'll leave it there. Um, Tell me, it's the first print that's been done in a collab. What's it like doing a collab? Because you have different styles, you need to learn how to work together. How does that work?
Is it the first collab?
For prints, I'm pretty sure.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy. I had no idea. Teflon was like I think this is the first collab. And I was like, no. And he was like, oh, okay. I was like, there's no way. Cause I was like, certainly someone has. That's sweet. We'll have to fact check that if it is. I'm sure
I
you would
think
know.
I'm
You're
correct.
the guy.
I hope
Wait,
so.
what?
I said I
Yeah.
hope so. No,
Like you're
I'm 99.9% sure I'm correct. Anyhow, I'd love to know more about it. How does it work? You know, I remember, you know, you have to work with people at school and do various things. You need to collaborate with people at work, but creating a piece of
mhm.
art, like you said, can be very meaningful and visceral and emotional. And there'd be a lot that goes into it. So you're both happy with the outcome and that you both
Yeah.
are represented.
Yeah. So Teflon and I are doing 2 collabs. This is the first one, so it's exciting, like fun little alpha.
That is
This
the
is the
second piece. Thank
one.
you.
Yeah, and this one was so much fun. He like showed me, so Teflon does collage art, and with that, you know, obviously he like, I don't even know what all he does or where he gets all this stuff from, but he's told me a little bit about it, but I'll let you I'll let you ask him one day. But
I will.
yeah, I was like, he showed me just like a handful of pieces that were already completed. And he was like, which one do you resonate with? And I was like, I have to have these 2. I was like, give me these 2 right now. And she was for sure number 1. I was like, I have to have this girl. And he was like, okay. So he sent her over, and and he like broke down the collage pieces, and so, and I had already had like some, oh my gosh, I can't even remember the style of what it's called. Gradient. There we go. Gradient. I'd already been messing around with some like gradient glitch style stuff, which is the background of that piece. And like the purple into pink, like the sunset kind of feel. And I had that. I can't even tell you, Brett, I can't even tell you for how long I had that thing. And I think probably since early spring, and I always like loved it, and I just couldn't bring myself to delete it off of my Procreate like folders. And so he sent that over, and I was like, this would be so sick. And so I also wanted to have some, as I'm like messing around with it, I'm like, man, this is like actually kind of, you have to like very intentionally think about how to represent both artists and how to represent them both well and equally. Maybe not equally, but in my mind I'm thinking equally. And I was like, okay, how, like, everyone will know this is Teflon stuff. Like, this is a collage piece. That's easy. But it's like, oh, it just looks like glitch. Like anybody can do glitch. Like, how do I also like put my touch on there? And for me, that really looked like, you know, that brush specifically that's outlining her is the brush that I used on the king in the first piece of my understanding collection. And people love that king. Like, I get so many compliments on that guy. He's so simple, and people love it. And I mean, it's probably people appreciate simplicity, but I was like, I'm just gonna do a throwback to that brush, and so added that brush on there, and then did a little bit of like the chromatic stuff, and just played around with layering, especially with the cactus and whatnot. And so yeah, that was incredibly fun. I felt like both of us were represented really well. I really think the next one is also gonna do that really well, and, I'm really excited for that next one. But, yeah, so that's that. And then even back to collision of security, I think something, like, really wanna highlight is just, like, how difficult it is to get, man, my cheeks are, like, really, I've been drinking wine. My cheeks are rosy. Um just like how difficult it is to get down to size.
Mm.
And that collision of security, like if you talk to Jack, who's, you know, your dev at Gamma, that thing was like 160 layers. It was so stupid. It was like, this is not what Ordinals is for. Like this can't happen. So I either need to figure it out or submit a different piece. And Jack didn't say that. He was like very lovely and very helpful.
Mm.
But it was like that's my self-talk, and I'm like, I got to figure this out. So I think I got it down to 8. Yeah, I got it down to 8 layers, and that was just like, or 8 frames, and that was such a proud accomplishment, and especially just for me personally, of like it looks somewhat fluid. like it's just like almost like a rotating image. And so that was a really proud moment for myself of just like, I think that's the thing that I enjoy a lot about ordinals is like the puzzle making process of trying to get something, especially that's as heavy as glitch. Like, you know, I think specifically with glitch or animation, it's like, how do you actually now compress this in such a way where you're, you're holding your quality in one hand and you're also like holding a small file size in the next. And I love that challenge. And that's always been like probably, my most favorite part of it all.
Yeah, and I think you pour your heart into it. You take on the constraints of creating an ordinal that you're really happy with and that represents you because ultimately it's been eternalized on Bitcoin
Mhm.
and it's being
Mhm.
recognized. Like, you're selling your art, the prints sold out, your, stuff that you've done with Counterfeit Cult has sold out. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you'd like to, talk about or just mention as we wrap up?
Um, Gosh, no, not that I can think of. Yeah, it's just been like I guess this of like it has been such an incredibly fun ride, and like that sounds like so corny. I've just been doing it for not even a year with ordinals, but
Mm.
I'm like it's just been such a good time and genuinely with good people who are like we're I think it's like, yeah, you can like run into disagreements or I mean, obviously ordinals, comes with its own bit of baggage, so to speak, just because it's like we're all figuring it out in real time together. And I think what I just love really just the most about it is like we're all trying and doing the best that we can. And you can like really get that regardless of where people are at with whatever motivations and whatever we believe about motivations. People really believe in this and want it to grow and are really supporting artists in such a like encouraging and incredible way. And so I mean, even just like Gamma, what you guys are doing with Prince and counterfeit culture and what they're doing, and like, I mean, you could name like a handful of projects who are really trying to just like support builders, support artists, and um, at the end of the day, like that is really cool, and that is just been such a like just such a blessing, honestly. Like just to have that support, and that is what keeps me coming back constantly because it's like why am I doing this? And it's like, oh, I'm actually having like the time of my life. Like I can't imagine not doing this. This is just so fun. So yeah, I think that would probably be the tip of my hat to this.
Well, a tip of the hat back at you because, as you said, you've had an extremely tough year. I just couldn't imagine. So sorry to hear it. But at the same time, you have these things driving you, and you've stayed, here, and you've found things that have helped kept you going, and you've, got that drive and that passion, and you've been creating amazing art. So, we want to thank you as well for, putting your amazing stuff on Gamma and being part of the partner program, and wish you the best in any of the places that you do drop art.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brett. And it's like it's also just so fun. You're just like literally one of my day ones. Like it's fun.
We
I was
do go
talking to
back.
Ian like
It is fun.
I
Yeah.
know. It is,
Yeah.
yeah, I know. I was talking to Sus about it the other day and I was like, you're one of my day ones. Like it's just so crazy to see how we've all, transitioned into this space. It's really fun to be with you guys.
No, and you. So thank you so much. It's been an amazing conversation as always.